Hello, I am Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm joined today by my esteemed coworker, Alex, who is our Director of Sales and Logistics. Alex, thank you for joining me today. You want to let people know who you are and maybe where you are, if you want to share that?
Yeah, thank you. You might notice by the format of my camera that I am in fact on my phone right now because I'm in Greece. I am with our other coworker Joe in Kalymnos, Greece, which is a small island on the Aegean, very close to Turkey. And Joe is here because this is a big rock climbing island. And I was already in Europe and he invited me to come stay at the Airbnb he was staying with. And I was like, well, that's cheap. And we all work from home. So here I am working from an island in Greece.
I'm so glad. I was telling someone this yesterday. I'm so glad that my amazing team members are realizing that you guys can work anywhere in the world, really. So you have flexibility to travel and not necessarily always work. I know part of this is maybe a light vacation, but I appreciate you jumping on this call and talking about stuff as well and doing emails here and there. Yeah, you all are
Yeah,
awesome. And I love that you can travel and do that.
yeah, no, it's really cool. And it's honestly, it's nice that even while working, like it's
Mhm.
Friday right now, Friday night, it's 8 o'clock Friday here. And so even though I have been working, I won't be working the next 2 days and I'm on an island in Greece. And then Monday I'll do work again, but it's still here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so excited that you're having that adventure.
Yeah.
Um, And part of the adventure that we go on as a company every day is the puzzle of logistics. How do we work with distributors and freight shipping and fulfillment centers and retailers? And Alex has become an expert at this area over the last few years. And so I thought, and we thought, Alex and I were talking about this behind the scenes a little bit. We thought, let's have one of these conversations that we normally talk about behind the scenes and just have it publicly on camera and record it and talk about it. Some stuff will be like real behind the scenes stuff, and others will be more explanatory to help other people who are curious and other creators see how we do logistics at Stonemaier Games, in case that might be a good fit for you. Um, so where to even begin, Alex? Do you want to give maybe a very broad strokes overview of what the supply chain looks like for Stonemaier Games, and then I'll after you explain that, I'll tap into some specific areas of
Mhm.
it for you to elaborate on.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all real purposes, all of our products are manufactured in China. We have a few things like disc golf discs and T-shirts that are made in the U.S., but for all for our purposes, everything is manufactured in China. And so the first step is how do we get that product from China to the various places in the world that we sell it? The majority of it is in the U.S., but we have fulfillment centers in the UK, in Australia, and also in Canada, as well as having distributors all around the world. And so that first step is how do we get products on a boat to the various locations? And sometimes that is before we even announce what a product is, which means some of that is us moving stuff to our fulfillment centers, but some of that is us talking with our handful of closest, large distributors and making sure that they know about a product and they can kind of, similar to what we do, make an educated guess about how much they think they'll need and move that product. So that we can ship full containers of product from China directly to them, which is much more efficient than going, say, from China to the US to Germany.
Well, let me do. There's more to describe for the supply chain,
Yep.
but let me jump in there and ask. This is we'll go behind the scenes right away. So we are working on. We're printing a new game right now, right? A new game that we're going to release later in 2023. Uh, Tell everyone about the timing of when and how you decide how you help. Really, how you decide how many copies we're
Mhm.
going to print, because you're just talking about like gauging demand right now, and part of that is a little bit
Right.
of guesswork. How popular do we think this game will be out of the gate with
Hmm.
consumers, direct consumers in particular for our web store? But
Hmm.
the other part of it is distributors. So how do you decide that, and how much do you
Hmm.
talk to distributors about that? What information do they know, and how early do they even know it? A month before a game is going to be released, or even announced? Like
Yeah.
this is a secret game. When this video comes out, no one will have heard of
Right.
this game. You will only have heard of
Hmm.
this game 3 months from now.
Right. Absolutely. So that first bit is with a handful of distributors, right? So we have, across the world, we have about 20-ish distributors we work with, but We have a handful of very large distributors. We have one distributor who works with us for all hobby stores in the U.S., GTS. We have one that does the same thing in Canada, Universal, and then we have Asmodee UK and Asmodee Nordics that similarly sub-distribute to other distributors. But so we have those handful of distributors who we work very closely with, and so I'm having conversations with them sometimes, months and months in advance. For example, I've had a first conversation with one of those distributors this week about a product that will announce in Q4 and release next year, right? So we're talking like 6 months in advance there. And part of that is so that they can start doing a similar thing to what I'm doing, which is just like looking for where they can compare information. Like, what does this game, compare to with our other games? Is it, is this a brand new game? Is this an expansion to a game? Because it's all guesswork to some extent, but you're trying to find essentially comp titles, comp data. And so by sharing with those handful of distributors, I can get that same information because they have games for a bunch of publishers that they work with. So they have a little bit more data than I do, which means that by the time we're manufacturing a game, they can at least give me a forecast of this is, roughly the range that they think they'll need. But then similarly, you and I are doing the same thing with our direct web store. Mm-hmm. And so then and then we're making a second decision of how big of a risk do we want to take, because that data may be enough to, do we want to print just enough that we think we can meet that very initial demand and then go out? We might go out of print or out of stock until we do a reprint, or do we want for at least a month? And it's still a guess at that point, though.
Yeah, it's still very much a guess. And I think some people might be watching this and wondering, hey, why don't you just go back to Kickstarter? Why not? Well, with Kickstarter, you know exactly how many you need to print. And Alex, you can add to this answer, but I'll throw in two little things here. Hearing Alex talk here, you can hopefully start to see how that answer is still very nebulous. If we ran a Kickstarter tomorrow for this game that we're talking about, and say we got 10,000 backers, and we knew we needed to make around 10,000 copies. Okay, do we make exactly 10,000 then? We had 10,000 people respond. Let's make 10,000 copies. But the game would then come out, 3, 4, 5 months later if we're doing a Kickstarter, probably even later than that, probably 6 months at least. And by then, there might be a lot more people who are excited about the game. And by then, there might be a ton of distributors and retailers who are really excited about the game. So that 10,000 becomes X. Like, it's still completely unknown. You have a baseline then, but we always kind of have a baseline, right? We always, at least at this point, an experienced publisher has a baseline. Yeah, do you want to elaborate on that? Like, it's still it's still a guess, right?
It's still a guess and both directions, right? So what if you say, okay, so my Kickstarter or my pre-order did 10,000, so I'm going to do twice that. I'm going to do 20,000. What if, and luckily for us, this has not been the case for us, but what if that 10,000 is all anybody ever wants? And then you have more copies you can't sell, or it takes years to sell. And so even, even trying to meet demand is sometimes like, you just don't know because we're, manufacturing. Currently, it takes about 4 months for when we start manufacturing something to when it's arriving in warehouses to be sold around the world. During the height of the pandemic, when there was the shipping crisis, it was more like 7 months. Mm-hmm. And so you're having to, make wild guesses about what people want half a year now. That's difficult to do in the best of times.
Right. And I'm not saying this, I guess, to be defensive against anyone that might say that. It's more offering a piece to the puzzle, offering to you all who are watching this, like how much of a puzzle it is, whether or not you use Kickstarter. It is still a guessing game that we're trying to figure out so that we can best serve you and so that it's sustainable for us. Because if we printed 100,000 copies of every game, sure, we definitely cover that original demand, most likely. Maybe not for Wingspan expansions, but for most demand. But we might be sitting on 90,000 copies of a game, and that is not sustainable at all for a company to do.
No. Well, to give an example, I can actually name Expeditions. So right now we did a pre-order, and distributors have been taking orders from retailers, and retailers are taking but we still don't know at the end of the day when it starts coming out is our web store suddenly going to pick up with 10,000 more orders? Is is an online retailer is everybody going to suddenly want 10,000 more orders? And suddenly you have a situation where it's like, I think right now we're good. We have a few thousand buffer, maybe, but it could be. It turns out as soon as it launches, that actually we needed to print 20,000 more copies, and we just didn't know it.
Right. Yeah. So I
And
wonder
that's with the pre-order.
That's with the pre-order, exactly. Yeah, with a pre-order
Yeah.
having those exact numbers essentially,
Mm-hmm.
that aren't even exact at all because we learn as we go. So some people watching this might just be consumers, people who love games. What
Mm-hmm.
and some of those people, you can guess at a percentage maybe if you want, but some of those people prefer to buy from from retailers, so not directly from the publisher, maybe not on the
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter even or that type of crowdfunding platform. They want to buy from their preferred local or online retailer. How can they participate in this guesswork system? What can they do to help make sure that they have a copy of a game
Mm-hmm.
or new product upon release? Is there anything they can do?
I mean, the best thing they can do is go to their retailer and ask to take a pre-order. Most hobby game stores will do pre-orders. A lot of the online retailers will do pre-orders. So sometimes we work closely with various online retailers to make sure that they're only taking pre-orders that we are guaranteeing to them. But sometimes you'll take a pre-order online and they don't actually know if they're going to get those games to give to you. But the best thing you can do is take that.
Sorry, I'm actually confused. Alex froze for a second. Alex, can you repeat that? I think you froze for a second. Yeah. So best thing you can
Oh yeah,
do
I'm sorry
is
about that.
blank. Yeah.
Is just put in a pre-order with whoever you are, who you ordering from, and that is usually putting some money down, which depending on your life circumstance, you may or may not be able to do that. But wherever that is, you're hopefully when the chain is working the best, you're pushing data back up the chain essentially, which is a weird, very businessy term to say you're giving us the information we need to try to do a better job to print enough games for you.
And that really, it does help everyone there. It helps. So if you really love your local retailer, it helps them because they are getting a sale and they're probably increasing the chances of getting the game. And this actually delves a little bit, Alex, into what we've done with the GTS. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it might just be with GTS, but maybe you've done it with other distributors now. What have you done to work with them to ensure that local retailers in particular have enough copies to serve customers upon release date?
Yeah, so with GTS specifically, we really GTS implemented a program that we helped them implement, but it was their idea and it was a great idea. They have a program for retailers called the Fortress program, the Stonemaier Fortress program, where as a retailer you can join this program and guaranteed you choose which tier you want. You either get 3 or 6 guaranteed copies of any brand new game, and is when that game, that the brand new Stonemaier game, when that new game is going out, they automatically place the order for you. So even if you missed it, you still have those copies guaranteed to you. However, if at the same time we want it to be as friendly for retailers as possible, so like if we announce a new game and you're just like, oh, that is a dud for my store, like my store cannot sell 3 copies of this game, you're completely free to go in and cancel it. Like they're not going to force you to take those copies. It's just automatically pre-ordered for you.
And for those stores, say there's a store that they have one big Stonemaier fan who comes to their store. They know they need 1 copy of the game. How does that store get that one copy?
Well, so the second thing we do with GTS is like we are working very hard for them to never have to allocate our first print runs of our products. It's possible. But as a store, or what GTS specifically does for allocations, and we encourage most of our distributors do this at this point, is they will guarantee 1 copy to every store before they will give anyone a second copy. The only exception being the Fortress stores, because we are always specifically printing and they are buying those copies for the Fortress stores. But beyond those, it's everyone will get 1 copy before anyone gets a second copy, so that every store, if you put in a pre-order for 1 copy, you should always get it.
And by allocations, what Alex is referring to is say that we have 1,000 copies of a game for GTS. but GTS has 3,000 orders from retailers. GTS then has to decide how many of those 1,000 copies goes to each retailer and maybe which retailers miss out on it. And we're trying to avoid that possibility of those retailers missing out on it. But that's what Alex is saying by when allocation is when the supply of it or the immediate current supply of it doesn't meet demand. Is that correct, Alex? Is that right? Alex, I think Alex. So Alex is on that Greek island. So there's a little bit of a gap here. The other part,
sorry
Alex,
about that.
You're okay. The other part of that I was maybe leading you to a little bit, and you stuck with distributors, but there is another way for retailers to buy directly from us. The direct retailer program that our coworker Susanna works on. Can you describe how that works and why we do it and how maybe that's evolved a little bit?
Yeah, so in the US and Canada, we have a direct retailer program where as a retailer, if it works best for you to buy directly from us, essentially we have a form if you go to our stonemaiergames.com, there's in the one of the drop-down menus about stores, there's become a retailer. And there's a form there you can fill out, and then Susanna will just double check that your store is a legitimate store and not someone looking to sell games on Amazon out of their basement or something like that. And at that point, you get signed up for our retailer program, and you can buy directly from us. We ship it from our fulfillment center. Same sort of situation where we make sure that we have enough copies for any store, and we are as we're doing pre-orders. So like for Expeditions right now, you can go and place a pre-order for Expeditions to get those guaranteed copies. And similarly to GTS, we ship them out early. We'll make sure we don't have the same kind of allocation system there because we just haven't needed it. Essentially, it's working like a web store. But the big difference between our store and say GTS is if you're ordering from GTS, you need to spend at least $750 to get free shipping on your order. And that $750 does not have to be all Stonemaier products. But say you're a store that's just like, I need 6 copies of Wingspan and nothing else. Our web store, it's the minimum is $150. The idea being you can order a single case of games, and that you can have that shipped to you for free, because that's sort of the scale we're working at, and you're getting that direct attention from us.
And Alex here was talking specifically about retailers buying directly from us at discounted retailer prices, so they can then resell those games at a profit and keep their doors open, as retailers would do. So talking about retailers, Alex, something that you and I have debated behind the scenes recently and on an ongoing basis is, do we sell all of our products to retailers and or distributors, or are there some products that we only sell on our web store? And one level of this is, do we ever differentiate between brick and mortar retailers and online retailers? Let me know your thoughts on those topics and some of the things that you think about that other people might be curious to know about.
Right. So what I sort of my guiding principle within this is that part of our, I would say the core piece of our vision statement at Stonemaier is that we want to bring joy to tabletops worldwide. And part of the reality of the matter is that some of our fans, some people want to buy Stonemaier games and play Stonemaier games that they buy directly from us on our web store. Some want to buy games from their local, friendly local retailer, and others honestly want to buy their games on Amazon or a similar, big box online retailer. And so, for me, my kind of guiding principle is, how do we reach as many of these fans as possible? How do we make our games as available as possible to fans? Like, that's why we work with localization partners in, I think Wingspan is in 31 languages. We're not, when someone prints 1,000 copies of Wingspan in a language that we're not making a huge amount of money. It's so much more efficient to focus on English, but we want those fans to be able to play our games. So when we have those opportunities, we do so. And in the same sort of way, for the most part, I like to make our games as widely available as possible. However, there are various challenges with that, right? So um, some products just don't make sense. Or for example, the Wingspan vision-friendly cards. They're a
Mhm.
more niche product. Uh, it's not the sort of thing that like Amazon is looking to sell, and the fan who's looking to buy Wingspan on Amazon generally isn't looking for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so it can be more efficient. And sometimes with a more niche product like that, if we're only selling directly on our web store, we can also offer fans a better price because we don't have to kind of do the full supply chain discounts.
Yeah. So one part that I struggle with a little bit, that Alex and I have talked about, is what's what is the difference between someone buying from the Stonemaier Games web store and someone buying from an online retailer? Like what how if we have a product, so we sell products to distributors, retailers, localization partners, but also directly to consumer.
Mhm.
And if someone is going to buy it online, wouldn't we want them to buy it from us, since another
Mhm.
online retailer isn't really doing anything differently than we're doing by
Mhm.
selling online? And of course, like the answer for the most part for 90% of our products is, like Alex said, we want to bring joy to tabletops worldwide. People buy from different places. That's why we offer our games and expansions to any seller that wants to sell them, essentially, retailers
Mhm.
and online and brick and mortar.
Mhm.
But there are certain products that I don't know, maybe I get a little bit too caught up on these products when we like make a special add-on pack for a game, or Alex mentioned the vision friendly
Mhm.
cards, or when we make metal mechs that we would have to mark up so much to justify
Mhm.
selling to retailers. And so we try to keep the price a little bit lower on our web store. But yeah, is it just a matter of bringing joy to people based on where they want to buy products, or is there something that
Mhm.
online retailers are doing that does provide a service beyond what we can do
Mhm.
on our web store?
Yeah, I'm to some extent it is marketing reach.
Mm-hmm.
It's you think about Amazon. Amazon is not actively marketing. You can there's ads and things on Amazon, but Amazon is not like going out of their way to actively market our games.
Yeah.
At the same time, um, people buying online usually have the places that they are comfortable buying and they're used to looking. Um,
Yeah.
and in a lot of ways, like if we're talking Amazon specifically, is they've designed their entire platform not about being the cheapest ever, but being the most ease of use.
Mm.
Um, so you think about all of the Amazon Prime, the 2 day shipping or the 1 day shipping, all of those things, the uh, the subscription services, and the you can use your Alexa to order something just by telling it you want to order it, things like that. Um, that's all designed. All of that is about having a large user base that is very easy for them to buy from.
Mhm.
And so similarly, or because of that, you have so many people who, if they want to buy something, their instinct is to go to Amazon and look there. And if it's not on Amazon, they may not do the work to look further. Um, it is a human nature, I want to say. This is in some ways, a marketing thing where it's there's a mental block. Once someone's bought from a single platform, it's much easier for them to buy from that platform again. But there is a barrier, but to get them to do it once.
And that is, I think you touched perfectly there upon the challenge that I think about when we do this, because uh, there is an additional level of service that we can offer to people if they buy directly from us. Like we have control over the price, we have some control over the fulfillment center, the level of service the fulfillment center is providing, the packaging. Um, and so if we can get someone, and not trick them into doing it, but if we can draw in a new customer to our web store, like if they buy Libertalia from Amazon and they're like, oh, I really want those metal coins that I saw a friend has, but they can only get them from our web store. If we can get them to then buy that product from a web store, then they might be more likely, I think probably more likely, to buy from our web store again, giving us that
Mhm.
opportunity to directly serve that customer on an ongoing basis.
Right.
That's part of the debate in my mind, right? Like it's an
Yeah.
opportunity that's lost if that customer
Mhm.
could have just added those metal coins to their Libertalia order on Amazon.
Right. It's similar but different. But it has some similarities to what like when Simon does their Kickstarters and they have so many Kickstarter exclusives, right? We don't want any of our products to ever become not available again.
Right.
But it is a similar thing where they want their fans to buy their games on Kickstarter because you know, because they're getting more of that direct connection and, um, are getting a higher percentage of the sale rather than sharing it with distribution when they do that. Um, but it's the same thing. How do you kind of entice customers to get into that, into that network, I guess. And it's essentially we're dealing with two different challenges. Um, Amazon is casting the widest net for us,
Mm-hmm.
the direct, but we ideally, um, like ideally we have that channel where a fan discovers games and they might start buying on Amazon or something like that, and then they might move from there to their friendly local game store where they have a community, or if they're an online community like Stonemaier, with our Facebook groups and then our web store, that they're moving closer essentially.
Right.
Um, but both pieces are important, right? We want the casual fan to become the more the closer connected, but we also want to be reaching people who could become fans.
I think that's really well said too, that there are various levels of fandom. And it's probably some people who have bought Stonemaier Games products that don't consider themselves fans. They heard Wingspan was good, so they bought Wingspan. And people are also joining the hobby every day. And if we have the opportunity to be that game that helps them join the hobby, but we lost that opportunity because we weren't on Amazon, or we weren't at Miniature Market, or weren't at a local retailer, that's partially our responsibility there. We lost an opportunity to bring someone into the gaming hobby because we weren't able to serve that place where they were going to buy that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, but then, taking that to accessories, so you think, well, a new fan is much less likely to buy an accessory. Um, but for us, we do have a kind of a weird scale, right? Where Wingspan has become such a large brand in of itself that, like you said, someone might not think of themselves as a Stonemaier fan, but they're a Wingspan fan, but they're not looking for the Stonemaier group. They're just, I like Wingspan, I'm going to buy everything Wingspan. Um, so the sort of the scale there and the demand for things that might be like a Wingspan accessory is so much larger
Mhm.
than the demand for a Libertalia accessory.
Right. Right. One other nuance that I'll mention here for people following along, and Alex and I we had emails about this today, something that we're actively talking about, actually figuring out this. We experiment all the time with stuff, and we discuss stuff, and we try things. Is I'm kind of pushing for the idea that if we have a special accessory for a game, that upon release, for the most part, unless it's the product has really weird margins, but for the most part, that we offer it upon release, that accessory, to brick and mortar retailers. There are some areas of the world where you can't legally differentiate between online and brick and mortar, but where we can, offer those to brick and mortar out of the gate, because that way we can serve those people who want to support their local game store, which we care deeply about. We want to show that we care deeply about it by our actions. The debate we're having to a certain extent is, should we actually differentiate there? Should we make that that change? And I think Alex has mentioned to me, and this was illuminating to me, and Alex, you can say it as well, but the idea that if we don't offer to online retailers out of the gate, and then we come to those retailers a few months later and be like, oh, we have those metal coins now. Do you want them? That they're according to, from your thoughts, you think they're much less likely to take them at that point because all that buzz about the release is now gone. Is that accurate?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's games that are, we call evergreens. Wingspan, Scythe, and Viticulture is what I would say are the three big Stonemaier evergreen games.
Yeah.
And those games tend to have a longer tail where people are buying more, continuing to buy sometimes a large amount. Like for Viticulture, I think 2021 was the most sales of Viticulture in any year, and when that came out in 2013.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but that's unusual. Most games, 95% of the sales will happen in the first couple months after the launch, and unless it has kind of that evergreen nature, or it has a lot of demand and there wasn't enough printed, so if you actually have to wait till the second printing, and then you have a big bump again.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's that 95% in those first few months, then if you wait till after those first few months, well, an accessory for something that's not selling very well or not selling as much anymore also is not going to sell as much.
Yeah.
an important aspect of that is if so. So, for example, if we sell something only on our web store,
Mhm.
like say if we had said, we're only going to sell expeditions on our web store,
Right.
and we're not going to sell it anywhere else, we probably would have sold more copies on our web store. But it might have been like a 20% bump versus, or maybe even a 50% bump. But when you consider that for the most part, we're only selling 10, 10 to 15% of a game on our web store, that means just a lot fewer people are buying that thing.
Right. Yeah. It's going to reach a lot fewer tables.
Yeah.
Remind me of this for Expeditions. So Expeditions, we rarely do. We have two copies of Expeditions. We have the Ironclad edition. We have the standard version. Ironclad has metal mechs. We offered both to distributors and retailers. Did we offer them also to online retailers?
We did not in the places where we can differentiate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, Alex may have decided differently. That was kind of me stepping in and saying, hey, like if someone really wants to order the Ironclad edition directly in that way, like online, that they would need to come to us. But this is a case that where we did at least offer a deluxe version of a product to local retailers. Does this actually, one other side of this is, we're always looking for ways to improve our relationships with local retailers. We see them as a vital part of the gaming ecosystem. You've done an amazing job with them. Susanna's done an amazing job with them. Is this idea of offering some products to local retailers, but not to online stores, is that a way to serve those local retailers? Do they appreciate that? Do you hear from them saying, hey, thanks for doing that? Or do they not even know?
Yeah. Sometimes, anything we say, not every retailer is going to know. Any retailer is a small business that is very, very busy dealing with an industry where there's 5,000 games that release every year or something insane like that still. And they're just, oftentimes working 50, 60 hours a week, just running a small business. And so sometimes online communication is not the thing they're focused on the most, and they miss things. They don't realize things. But they do appreciate it, because that is the core thing that a brick and mortar, a hobby retailer is offering. They're offering a community. They're offering a place for people to learn about games. They're very rarely are they competing on price. It's just more expensive to staff a physical store. But when they have sort of those special niche things that they can say, yeah, you can come here and get this thing that you can't get on Amazon or Miniature Market. They do feel that, and they do appreciate that.
Alex, you were talking about evergreens a few minutes ago. Actually, so I'm going to switch topics a little bit here. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about in the many topics that we just covered before we move on to evergreens? It's just a quick question about evergreens.
No, I think that's good.
Okay. So Alex was talking about the idea of an evergreen game where most games come out, they have one print run. Maybe they had a crowdfunding campaign, maybe they don't, but they have one print run. And sometimes even a game might be very well received, but that might be it for the game. An evergreen is when a game is reprinted on a regular basis, where it reaches enough people on a consistent basis where you're consistently selling it. Alex mentioned a few games of ours that have done that. And we have a few other games that have multiple print runs, but not quite on that same regular basis as Viticulture, Scythe, and Wingspan. I've heard, Alex, that distributors have seen a decrease in sales in evergreens, and maybe even a decrease in the number of new evergreens over the last year. Is that true? What are you seeing from that end based on, I guess, Stonemaier games and just things in general that you're hearing from distributors right now? And what does that mean for other creators who are thinking about making a sustainable ongoing game versus one big Kickstarter?
I would say it's definitely true when you are comparing to 2021. So there's a few very interesting things that happened in the pandemic. The number of new people coming into board gaming there was a huge growth of people coming to board gaming as they weren't going out, they weren't traveling, they were dealing with family at home all the time, trying to figure out how to get people off screens, all sorts of reasons. Basically, everything about the pandemic pushed people towards board gaming. So you had a huge number of new gamers coming in, and at the same time, logistics were really difficult. and so you had fewer um, games getting delayed, or people even seeing the cost of what it was to ship a games and saying we're going to wait. Like there are cases of Kickstarters that were just like, we're going to wait a year on our Kickstarter, and we're sorry backers, but we're going to wait until we can afford this because it's just so expensive to ship right now.
Right.
And so what ended up happening? Oh, and there was also no conventions for a while,
Mhm.
which meant you didn't have sort of that people going and discovering the new games in an organic matter way, and then sharing that with other people. Um, so all of that pushed people towards looking at, what are the top games? What's the long-term hotness list? And so I mentioned that viticulture had its best year in 2021.
Mhm.
Uh, that wasn't an accident. That was people were buying more evergreens. And then I personally believe for viticulture specifically, Wingspan, coming out of the hotness of Wingspan, a lot of people were new to gaming. I played this game called Wingspan. That's really nice. Like, I like this game. Okay, the company Stonemaier Games. What are their other big games? Well, Sight is a very different theme.
Mhm.
Viticulture is still about plants in whatever sense.
Uh-huh.
A slightly more accessible theme for the people who are coming in from Wingspan, and so that played into it as well. But it's the same thing. So that happened, and then actually in late 22 and early 23, we actually saw a whole bunch of Kickstarter games that people knew about suddenly coming out, suddenly releasing. But it did seem that there was a lot less, I want to say, hype around any of those,
Mhm.
any specific one. Maybe because there were so many, so it was spread out. Uh, but but yeah, there was kind of a bit of a drop off in the new evergreens. But as far as as a new publisher or coming out with new games, evergreens are something you hope for, you want,
Mhm.
and there are various different ways to push towards that. But that's not what you should expect with a new game. Um, with a new game, you should, especially if you're a brand new publisher doing your first Kickstarter or something like that, uh, your goal is to have a game. You make a game, have people who want it, print it, sell it, and if you can end up with one copy left, and you've printed exactly the right amount, and you've succeeded, um, and and that's okay. Um, and oftentimes that's the lifespan of a lot of games, and that's okay. That still can be successful. So it's okay if it's not, and then
Yeah.
if you have a game that does, you do that, and then it does take off. I think a great example right now is Earth from our friend Connor from Inside Up Games.
Yeah.
Uh, Suddenly you do have an evergreen, and it's now you're dealing with that, but it's a retroactive thing that you're now dealing with where it's happened, not because you expected it. And my game is going to be an evergreen, and I'll plan for that.
One thing I will throw in there, Alex, is I think there's a little bit of planning you can do to leave the potential open to have an evergreen.
Mm-hmm.
And one of it is just having a good relationship with distributors and retailers. I think that is
Right.
necessary to have an evergreen. Um, Probably there are some very rare exceptions about,
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom Death Monster is that they've sold a lot of copies. They could probably do another Kickstarter, sell a bunch more copies. Maybe there's a crowdfunding version of an evergreen, but for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
you need retailer distributor support, probably localization partner support as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for Earth, we'll use Earth as an example. Connor
Mm-hmm.
priced Earth. He selected components for the game that he thought would offer value and a great experience. And I agree. I
Mm-hmm.
love Earth. I think it provides a wonderful experience at the tabletop, for an affordable price. So he's offering good value for the price that you're paying. He charges $50. I think I even told Connor I think he'd probably sell that game for $60, and it would be just fine. Um, uh, but if Connor out of the gate had made Earth with all screen printed wooden components, like every component is screen printed, and the cost of Earth was $100, I think like if you're in another Kickstarter right now, I think it would be really great. But could retailers support Earth at $100 on an ongoing basis? Maybe not. I think that might be a little bit more of a struggle. And he could maybe offer
Mm-hmm.
two versions of the game. I think we see a lot of publishers do that. But that's one of the things that I think about in terms of preparing a product for long-term evergreen potential.
Mm-hmm.
That value to price calculation that you go through, so it can be a successful retail product.
Right. And Yeah, so definitely out of the gate, you can't the lower you price it like that, the more you're setting it up for that. There are obviously exceptions, like I want to say Gloomhaven. Um,
Yeah,
Pretty sure I guess it's a Gloomhaven 2.0 is on Kickstarter now,
right.
but you have that sort of that high price point evergreen, but that's not very common. That's less common.
Yeah. And
Um,
even with Frosthaven,
and,
it's like a $250 game. I think that is less
right,
set
yeah.
up to be
Mhm.
that evergreen that Gloomhaven has become. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted there.
Right. No,
Yeah.
no. I agree. That's even you think of hobby gaming is a hobby games are a luxury product, right? Like it's not
Mhm.
something people need. It's people who have money they can spend are spending money on it. But going from $60 to $250 for one game is definitely pricing some people out of it.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so there definitely is an element there, and I believe it's easier for a game to become an evergreen. Uh, but once it kind of has caught on fire,
Mhm.
the price starts to matter less because people have had that there's the buzz, there's a hype around something, and people want to be part of that experience. And so then the price point starts seeming more valuable. Uh,
Right.
but you can't plan for that.
Right. Right. The Arc Nova is the other game that I think of, one of the more recent evergreens. But I can,
Mhm.
off the top of my head, if you had to get me to name evergreen products right now that have come out in the last year, there aren't many of
Earth,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
Earth.
Earth, Arc Nova, maybe Cat in the Box. There's probably some party games
Um,
that I don't know about.
yeah, maybe Boop.
Boop, yeah, you can see
Yeah.
Boop being in there. Planet Unknown, maybe. I think that might break through. It's a wonderful game.
Mhm.
Um, so Alex, you've given me more than enough time that I asked for today. I really appreciate it. I have three quick questions to follow up on.
Okay.
If so, three quick ones. Let people know
Mhm.
what's going on with freight shipping right now, or should they be really, really worried about freight shipping right now, or optimistic? What should they think about it?
Um, so for the time being, freight shipping has normalized. Its prices are very slightly higher than they were before the pandemic, but they're pretty much back down to what they were before. Um,
Mhm.
that said, you don't we never know what's going to happen. Uh, you know, 3 months from now, 6 months from now. I will say, you know, politics and war and things like that are always bad for business. Stability and calmness are the best thing we can have. So, um, and we can't control that.
Right.
But for now, I would not stress about it. And at the end of the day, if something happens, then figure out how you need to pivot your business around what has happened. Be reactive.
Localization. Uh, where are we with that right now with Stonemaier Games? What are you prioritizing? What do you think we can do
Mhm.
better? Or just, yeah, just talk about localization partners real quick.
Um, yeah, no, absolutely. So uh, we have a kind of a luxury place where we have for a number of languages, we kind of have a single one or two localization partners who work with us on every game or almost every game. Uh, we work with partners to offer the best price by having shared print runs where all of our localization partners print at the same time and at the same time as us, so that any language independent component is printed in mass, which gives a small discount. Uh, but that means when something is less popular, it's harder to print because you need at least a few people to be printing a product.
Mhm.
Uh, so so I believe we're doing a lot well. We're very efficient about it, but there are things we can do better, and we're in the process of doing better. For example, right now, Susanna has been working on having whenever we make changes to a game, uh, creating a document that she can share with localization partners to let them know what those changes are, so they can make the changes for their next print run as well.
Yeah, that's we're always trying to make our games 0.001% more perfect every time we print a new version, whether it's correcting one
Right.
type or more. And sometimes localization partners even help discover some of those mistakes or things that could be a little clearer, a little better as they're going through the translation process. So Alex is talking about a way for us to share what we discover, but also what they discover during that process. Yeah. My last question, Alex, and feel free to riff on this or answer a different question. But I was thinking you're such a great problem solver. You ask great questions. What is a logistics related problem for Stonemaier Games? Anywhere in the supply chain, anywhere in your realm of things that you think about every day, what is the problem that you are processing and or trying to solve? Not necessarily today, but on an ongoing basis. It's something that you want us to do better or differently, or just something that, that's on your mind in terms of the logistics, the greater logistics puzzle.
Mhm. That's a good question. The one that's been on my mind that's hard to on my mind that doesn't have an easy solution is
Mhm.
when we print a print run, first print run is something, if it's a product, we're likely to only do 1 or 2 print runs of. And so we do enough to last us for a while. Or sometimes, over the course of the pandemic, we had some, sales numbers changed and we ended up with more stock than we expected. Right now, the majority of that stock ends up in the US,
Mhm.
which makes it very difficult for, partners around the world. If someone's in Japan or someone's in China or even Europe, and the games they need are in the US, we've already paid to ship those from China to the US, and then paying to ship them from the US to that part of the world is very expensive, especially if you're going back to China.
Yeah.
And yeah, so having ways to have games available or locally printed or something, right, in various parts of the world, and avoiding, and this is actually an eco problem as well as just a cost problem, where it's better for the environment if we can not ship games multiple places, back
Mhm.
and forth around the world.
Yeah.
So how to solve that and not have those partners who, like, okay, we're printing a new game, especially a new expansion. Do we know if we'll print it again? Maybe not. How much can they buy now? Now a year later they've sold through it, and now they can't get it because we're not reprinting it, but we have more in the US.
This goes back to that guesswork question that we talked about much earlier. How
Mhm.
that initial print run guesstimate can have long-term repercussions, whether we make too many or too few. In fact, this is talking a little bit more on the side of make too many, we can run into issues down the road too.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, printing too few, is bad, but printing too many is oftentimes worse.
Mhm.
Um, for a number of reasons. Now you're paying to store those games. You have money that you could be using to make new games is now tied up in these old games that you have until you sell through them. Um, and just the logistics. Like oftentimes it's better to print not enough. As much as it's frustrating for fans when you don't have
Yeah.
copies available when they would like them.
Yeah. Well, Alex, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that you're always processing things and trying to make things better and pushing me to do things differently and better and to experiment with different methods and seeing how they go. If anyone has any questions for Alex or for me about the things that we think about in terms of the supply chain and distribution, localization, retail, if you have any challenges for us, please let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear it. Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Alex, before we go?
No, I think you summed it up very well. It's always a challenge. The puzzle is always changing.
Mhm.
It's fun. It's fun, and it's fun that we constantly are working on that. We're always trying to improve. That we're coming up with different ideas and communicating and learning. Like this is as much as making game. Game design is always learning, right? Right.
Yeah,
Logistics is also always learning. There's always ways we can do things better.
I absolutely agree. Well, thank you, Alex, for your time today. We'll sign off now, and everyone watching, hope you have a good day. Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Yeah. Thank you.